All right, let's talk about something that I'm willing to bet affects almost everyone listening: overthinking. You know, that endless loop of thoughts that just refuses to switch off? Today, we're going to break down what's really going on in your brain, and more importantly, give you a science backed toolkit to actually do something about it. So let's get right into it. So let's just get this out of the way, right? The big question. Is overthinking just baked into your personality? Are you just wired this way? I mean, are you stuck with it for life? Well, the good news, and the whole reason we're doing this explainer, is that the science says absolutely not. And we're about to find out exactly why. Okay, so before we can break out of this trap, we kind of have to understand the trap itself, right? We need to know what's actually happening in our heads when we get stuck on that loop. Because it's not just a case of thinking too much. No, it's a very specific and kind of sneaky mental pattern. And yeah, that pattern has a name. Scientists call it rumination. Basically, it's the fancy term for when your brain gets stuck on a thought, usually a negative one, and just plays it on repeat, over and over and over. You're not solving anything, you're just spinning. It's literally like a hamster wheel for your mind. And look, this isn't just in your head, it's not some minor annoyance. This habit has real physical costs. I'm talking about stuff backed by research from places like the University of Michigan. This constant mental churn, it jacks up your stress hormones like cortisol. It completely wrecks your sleep. It can even make you more likely to get sick by weakening your immune system. Seriously, this habit physically wears you down. Okay, and this is probably the most important thing you're going to hear today. Ready? Overthinking is a habit. It is not a permanent part of who you are. It's a mental groove your brain has gotten used to falling into. And you know what the best part about habits is? They can be broken. They can be changed. This is not a life sentence. It's just a pattern, and we're here to learn how to draw a new one. So if it's a habit we can break, that means we can build a new one to replace it, right? We can literally, actively rewire our brains to default to calm instead of chaos. And I know that might sound like some motivational poster fluff, but it's not. It's all based on the very real, very cool science of neuroplasticity. Think of it like this. Your brain is way more adaptable than you think. Every single time you react to that old urge to overthink with a new action, you're carving out a tiny new path in your brain. With consistent, structured practice, that little dirt trail becomes a paved road. And pretty soon, your brain starts taking that new road automatically, without you even having to think about it. You're training it to step off the hamster wheel all by itself. Okay, theory time is over. Let's get down to business. It's time to open up the toolkit. I'm going to walk you through some super practical, science-backed strategies you can literally start using the second this explainer is done to start that rewiring process. First up is a technique I absolutely love. It's called the worry window. Just look at the difference here. The before picture is probably familiar. Worries just popping up whenever they feel like it, stressing you out all day long. The after is you taking back control. You literally schedule an appointment with your worries, say 15 minutes at 4:30 p.m. Anytime a worry pops up before then, you just say, nope, not your time, see you at 4:30. It's brilliant. You're not ignoring the thoughts, you're just containing them. Now, the worry window is awesome, but it's just one tool in the box. There are a few other big ones. You've got mindfulness. That's all about pulling your brain out of the past or the future and planting it right here, right now. Then there's physical activity. Sometimes the best way to get out of your head is to get into your body. And finally, cognitive diffusion. This one's a game changer. It's about learning to see your thoughts for what they are. Just thoughts, like clouds passing by, not urgent commands you have to obey. Okay, for anyone whose brain decides to run a marathon right when your head hits the pillow, this one is for you. It's called 4-7-8 breathing, and it is shockingly effective. It's simple. First, whoosh all the air out. Then, breathe in quietly through your nose for a count of 4, hold that breath for a count of 7, and then exhale, making a whoosh sound for a count of 8. Doing that a few times basically hits the reset button on your nervous system and gives your brain something simple to focus on besides your worries. All right, here's a pro tip straight from therapy, and it's all about planning ahead. It's called an implementation intention, which is just a fancy way of saying an if-then plan. You're basically creating a simple rule for your brain to follow. For example, if I catch myself overthinking at my desk, then I will immediately get up and stretch for 5 minutes. See? You make the decision before you're in the moment, which means you don't have to rely on willpower when you're already stressed. Okay, so I know some of this can sound a little clinical, a little abstract. So let's ground it in a super simple real-life story to show you just how powerful a small change can be.
So a friend of mine, Rahul, he had the classic bedtime overthinking problem. You know the one. The second his head hit the pillow, his brain would just light up, replaying work emails, second-guessing conversations, just convinced he'd dropped the ball on something important. I'm sure that sounds familiar to a few of you.
So what was the fix? Something incredibly simple. Instead of trying to wrestle with his thoughts, he gave them an outlet. Right before bed, he started taking just 2 minutes to write down the single most important thing he had to do the next day. This tiny brain dump was like a signal to his brain that said, hey, it's captured. It's on the list. You can switch off now. And you know what? It worked. That simple little action completely short-circuited the anxiety loop.
All right, so we've covered the what, the why, and the how. We've seen the science behind the trap, and we've loaded up our toolkit with ways to get out. Now let's pull it all together and talk about your first step. So let's just map this out clearly. The problem of overthinking shows up as chronic stress, or terrible focus, or that feeling of being totally paralyzed by a decision. But the cool part is we have a specific tool for each of those problems. For that constant stress, we use mindfulness and presence. For that scattered focus, we use structured worry windows. And for that decision paralysis, a simple routine like the brain dump can break the logjam. There's a practical action for every problem.
So here we are. The big question now isn't if you can change this habit. We know you can. The question is, what's your first move going to be? You've got the toolkit. You've seen the science. So which technique are you going to try first? The worry window? That 4-7-8 breathing tonight? Or maybe that super simple brain dump like Rahul? The power to start rewiring that brain of yours is, quite literally, in your hands right now.